Hey y'all, welcome. So glad you're here for our lesson on adding and subtracting fractions. Today we're going to be using a number line. Previously we had been using rectangle fraction models, where we were drawing rectangles and then partitioning those or dividing them into different parts, both vertically and horizontally, to create like units. Today we're going to be creating a number line and using our number line to solve our problems today. But before we begin, I do want to take us on a journey of 5 subtraction problems. I want you to solve these on your own. Let me see if I hit the right button. There we go. I did. Look at me. Way to go. Starting the day off right. Solve these 5 on your own. They should be decently easy mental math since we're dealing with whole numbers and fractions or the same fraction right there. But give those 5 a shot. Pause this here, unpause, and let's dive in. Awesome. Hope you took on those. Stellar work. Let's take a look here at our notes, and please write these down. You're going to want to make sure you have these so that when we are referencing these methods later this week as well as next week, we will have our notes that we can use. Reflect back. We're going to be adding and subtracting fractions again once more. So there we go. I want us to start with this problem here. So I'm going to give you a drawing of what this looks like. So I've gone ahead and I have shaded in these. Notice our addition sign right here. So we're doing something plus something else. I want you to think about that number sentence. What is that number sentence for right here? All right, well, I can tell I have 1 here. It's going to be 1 plus 1, and not quite another whole, so not quite 2. But there are 3/4 there, so it's 1 plus 1 and 3/4. Now, my guess is you might be able to do that in your head right there. But we're going to start with a simple problem with our number line. So when you see harder problems, you'll be able to take those on yourself as well. So here we go. Let's start with our number line here. Anytime we are adding together, and I'm going to write that off to the side. When we add, we start at 0. So when we're adding together, we're going to start at 0. And our number line here is going to go from 0 to 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So this first one, we always start at 0, so I'm going to put our dot right there to start with because that is where we are starting. Then take a look at this 1 right here. We started at 0, now we're going to go plus 1 right there, and that is this 1 right here. Okay. And then we got to take this 1 right here and add another 1. I realize my spaces aren't quite even. I am super sorry about that. So we've added this 1. We've added this 1. We have landed at 2 for right now. We're going to have to keep going, but for right now we're at 2. What more do we have to add? Well, I see, hey, there's still 3/4, 3/4. Is that more than 1 whole or less than 1 whole? Is 3/4 more than 1 whole or less than 1 whole? Well, looking at this picture right here that we drew, I can see that 3/4 is less than 1 whole. So that means we're not going to go quite to 3. I am going to have to separate this unit between 2 and 3 into quarters, into fourths. And we're adding 3/4. We're going to go 3 jumps there. We're going to say plus 3/4. Well, now that is where we are ultimately landing. That's perfect. There we go. But what number does this line right here represent? It doesn't represent 2. It's not on 2. It doesn't represent 3. It's not on 3. It's somewhere between 2 and 3. 2 and 3. No, I was at 2 and 3. There we go. And I remember, hey, we separated these into quarters. Let's That means our denominator would be 4. And then we want 1, 2, the third one over, so our numerator is 3. So we have this 2 that we're past 2 and 3/4. So our answer is 2 3/4. So we're combining our addition problem using a number line today. Let's take a look at our next problem. And I'm going to try and leave that where we can see most of this. You can also see this next one. 2 3/10 plus 3. Now, I dropped my green pen. It's still on the floor, and I wanted the green pen, so I'm going to grab it. But I noticed on this first one, we had a whole number, then our fraction. So even though we had one whole number and a mixed number, we had 3 different parts to what we were adding. So I'm going to underline our 3 different parts here. We have our 2, we have our 3/10, and we have our 3. Now, if we were going to go in order, we would add it like this, right? We would do 2 plus 3/10 plus 3. And that is completely okay, and we could do that. If we go in order, we won't forget anything to add, because we'll do, work from left to right, we'll add our 2, then our 3/10, then our 3. I have a question for you, though. If we went like this, 2 plus 3 plus 3/10, would we get the same result, the same answer? If we change the order that we're adding in, will we get the same answer? If we add the whole numbers first, that might be easier because we're adding whole numbers. But it would only work if we got the same answer. What if we added the 3 first? What if we went 3 plus 2 plus 3/10? Would that give us the same thing? Or what if we took the green one and just went completely backwards and did 3 plus 3/10 plus 2? Well, let's draw a number line, and we're going to take a look at the green one and the red one. We could do all 4, but our number line would get super confusing, and we just need 2 to illustrate the possibility here. So our number line is going to have to go from 0 to 6. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to label those underneath here. So please make sure you are drawing this number line with us. I want to make sure you have this, so when you are working on our problems later, you can reference this, you can refer back to this, and please make sure you're writing it in a notebook, not on something that you'll, or in your notes section, both paper or notebook. Somewhere you will have these when you're taking on our practice problems. So don't write this somewhere you're going to erase. So I'm going to start with this green one, and we always remember when we add, we start at 0. When we add, we always start at 0. So we're starting at 0 here. I've got our starting dot here. We're going to add 2 first. So that would go 1, 2. I'm going to write a plus 2 on the top and draw my arrow. Then we need to add 3/10. So we would separate 2 to 3 into 3/10. I'm not going to quite draw those out. I'm just going to make 3 little hops here and write plus 3/10. And I know that 3/10 is part of the way between 2 and 3. Closer to 2 than it is to 3. So we got it right there. So we added the 2. We've added the 3/10. Then we just need to add 3 more. So since we're at 2 3/10 right now, these next 3 jumps are going to go one whole, which means we won't land on a number. We will land 3/10 to the right of each of these numbers. And we get here. That went a little farther than I would have liked, but it'll work. So we went 2, then we went 3/10 more, and then we went 3 more after that. Now let's take a look at our red order. always start at 0, so I'm going to start at 0. Now we've got 2 colors on our 0. And this time I'm going to go underneath, just to make everything a little neater. We've got our green one up top, our red one will go underneath. It doesn't matter because it'll be the same. We're just worrying about left to right, not up and down today, just left to right. So on our red one, we start again with the first step, which was adding 2. So we've ended up in the first step, or the same spot for that first step, and that's pretty obvious because the first one was 2 on both of them. Now our next thing we'll add is 3, and that's going to be 3 holes. So we'll go 1, 2, 3. And then the last thing we need to do is 3 little jumps here for 3/10. Now, do we end up in the same spot? Let's take our ruler, or in my case, a triangle. We have ended up in the same spot, whether we did 2 plus 3/10 plus 3, or 2 plus 3 plus 3/10. So the order we did them in didn't matter. We ended up in the same spot. And we'd see that we would end up in the same spot with our pink method or our purple order. We would end up in that same exact spot any way we did that, any order we solved them in. In fact, there's 2 different orders that are not written down yet that we could also do, and we would end up in that same exact spot. So now that we know where that spot is, we just have to figure out what number represents that dot right there. We'll take a look. Between 5 and 6, so it's not 5, it's not 6, it's 5 and something. It's going to be 5 and 3/10. Okay? I bet you're starting to notice something with this equation here. If you are, that's awesome. We're going to keep drawing these out because even if you're noticing what patterns you're starting to see, that's awesome. But I want to make sure we have this method down for when you try some harder problems later that you're not going to be able to do so easily in your head. Our next problem is coming up. We're going to start this next one with our number line. So draw this number line with us. We're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dashes. But it's not going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to go 0 to 1, and 1 is way over there on the right side. And we're going to separate this into quarters. So 1 quarter, 2 quarters, and 3 quarters. And our problem, well, I'm going to pause here for just a minute. I know I'm going a little too fast. Let's drink some coffee. Our problem is going to be 1 minus 1 quarter. Now, when we add, we start at 0. Now we're not adding, we're subtracting. When we subtract, we start at the first number. So our first number here is 1. So we're going to start at 1. Now we notice when we were adding, like take a look at this one, this problem that we just did, we always move to the right. But subtracting is the opposite of adding, so if we were moving to the right when we were adding, we must move to the left when we're subtracting? Yeah, because that's the opposite. Started moving to the right. With adding, subtracting, we're going to move to the left. So we start at 1, we have to go backwards 1 quarter. So we're just going to go 1 quarter back, and we get right there, and where do we land? 3 quarters. Now, I bet you already knew, based on the work we've done so far in the last couple of weeks, that 1 minus 1 quarter would be 3 quarters. That's awesome, but I wanted us to illustrate this so that when we take on these next couple of problems, you'll be ready to go. All right. I'm going to give you this next problem and the number line that goes with it, and then I want you to take it on, and then I'll share my answer with you. The number line is going to have to go from 0 to 2. Now I've left lots of space in between those numbers in case you need to divide anything up like we did for those quarters. So I want you to look at that problem. If you're with somebody, talk through your answers. If you're with a friend, a neighbor, an adult, a parent, talk through this problem with them. What would you do to solve it? Now I know we're going to start at the 2. We're going to move left. What do we do? Give this one a shot. Pause our video here, and come on back, and I'll show you my work for this. All right, so here's my drawing for this. I started at 2, and then I knew that 3/5 was less than 1 whole, so I wouldn't quite get to 1. But I did know I had to divide the space between 1 and 2 into 5 parts. So I labeled each of those 1 and 1/5, 1 and 2/5, 1 and 3/5, 1 and 4/5, and then 2 would have been 1 and 5/5. So then I just had to go back to the left 3 spots. So I went 1, 2, 3, and there it was. I landed at 1 and 2/5. Awesome. Now I'd like you to take on this problem. We just kind of showed you the answer there. Super sorry about that, but I want to make sure that I forgot I had it written down there. Oh, and I need to write my answer there. 2 minus 3/5 was 1 and 2/5. Okay. And I want you to take on this problem. 3 minus 1 and 2/5. Now we know because our first number is 3, our number line is going to have to go all the way out to 3. Start at 0, 1, 2, 3, and give that problem a shot. I do notice that we've got a 1 here that's going to make things a little different. So pause this here, give this a shot, work it through, and then we'll check our work together. Awesome. So here's what I did. I started at 3, and then I knew I had to subtract that whole 1 first. So I went back. 3 minus 1 was 2. 1 jump got me to 2. And then I only had 2/5, and I knew 2/5 was less than 1 whole. So I had to split that up, the section between 1 and 2, into 5 parts. I went back 2 spots. Now, it was super helpful for me to label each of those dashes between 1 and 2 with my fifth. So 1 and 1/5, 1 and 2/5, 1 and 3/5, 1 and 4/5. So I knew right away I landed at 1 and 3/5. Awesome. All right, well, I feel like you're ready to take on some practice problems. Let me pull out my trusty book here. And here we go. There are 8 problems for you to take on. So that is it for our lesson. Take on these 8 problems. They do start out easier and then get a little tougher. Now, I just wrote these over here because they're down here, and you can't quite read them down here because that's off the page. There are 8 problems. If you have questions about these, come see me. I'd love to answer your questions. Use a number line for all of them, even if they're super simple, just because we're going to build that foundation and that knowledge so when we move into the future, we'll be good to go. Awesome. Y'all pause this here because I'm about to go get ready for the day, but y'all have an amazing day. If you have any questions with this, let me know. I'm so proud of your hard work. So glad you watched this video. You are awesome. Have a great day. Bye, y'all.